Strategic implementation of gardening leave. What does this mean? So we said there is a confidentiality provision. Okay. Now, what do you do if there is a confidentiality provision, but you found out that some director or some senior level person is not doing well, and you need that person to leave the company. Okay. If that person, and you have a 1 month notice clause, you give them a 1 month notice. But obviously, no one will prefer to be jobless. So the moment that person gets a notice, they will apply for jobs elsewhere. Correct? If they apply for jobs elsewhere, what's going to happen? What's going to happen if they apply for jobs elsewhere? There's a huge likelihood that some or the other part of confidentiality will be breached. Accidentally also it can be breached, and you may not be able to track it. And you want to minimize this risk. At least one thing will be there, that even that person's mind will be germinating with all the ideas, product plans, and the next 3 to 6 months ka growth plan of the company. And you don't want ki this should go out. Okay. So what will you do? That now there, what you do, it's called gardening leave. Like you sent your executive to on a leave and he is just doing gardening. It's like that. Basically, the point is the person is on your payrolls. If the person is on your payrolls, you're going to have a higher loyalty. He or she cannot apply for jobs elsewhere. And you slowly put that person out of important projects and restrict the person to regular roles, so that in another 3 to 6 months, when the person quits, okay, at that time there will be no secret information which could be very damaging for the company in that person's possession. Regular confidentiality will apply, but uske paas utne secrets nahi hai. So if he wants to do harm, that person will not be able to harm much. Okay, and obviously you will enforce if he or she leaks out information. So this is another one. Okay, did you follow strategic implementation of gardening leave? Say yes if you followed, say no if you didn't. Okay, clawbacks and recoupment policies. So, did you see how we implemented the clawback? Which one you want me to explain him in? Gardening leave. Gardening leave is this, that if you think that an employee is not doing well, you want a senior employee to leave the company. If you immediately do that, that person will have access to a lot of confidential plans and data and may share it with competitors, even accidentally. Or even if he or she doesn't share it, there's like a lot of things you want to try out, and he may use that knowledge in projects, okay, while working with a competitor or another company. So you don't want that to happen. So you will slowly phase the person out. You will not terminate their employment. For 3 to 6 months, you will phase them out of important projects, so that the company, your company, gets to try out whatever you wanted to. And this executive will not be aware of all the findings at all, but will keep getting salary. So he doesn't lose his job. He can't apply elsewhere to work unless he decides to quit. He or she won't apply elsewhere for work. And the value of the confidential information fizzles out over time. Followed? Next is clawbacks and recoupment policies. What is a clawback? I've discussed this, right? The example of the sales being inflated. Okay, now how do you enforce this? There is uh, Companies Act, Indian Company Law, RBI, all of them are saying that clawing back compensation is allowed. Okay. Now the question is, what about, so how do you enforce it? You will need to have a policy in the company. You will need to have a term in the contract for this. And then when you actually invoke this, you will have to do some letter drafting and all of that. Okay. And if there's a dispute, you will need to go to court, or you will need to do an arbitration. So all of this becomes important. Next, severance compensation. So followed till here, followed clawback and recoupment policy. I showed you Infosys's recoupment policy, right? And severance compensation and its exclusions. So what is severance compensation? Do you know? So the commercial understanding goes like this, that entry level jobs are a lot more than senior level positions. So you'll notice that while a senior person may earn way more than a junior entry level person, it will be harder for a senior person to find another job. Okay. It will take more time. So what happens is that if a contract of a senior person is terminated, he or she will say that, okay, give me compensation for loss of office, for loss of my job. Please give me compensation. And this gets contractually negotiated. Okay. And you can say that, bhai, he's not on a job. Why should he get any compensation? Which is totally fine if you can negotiate it and do it. But Again, law and commercial practice allows for this to happen. Okay, like you can see the CEO of WeWork, when his agreement was terminated, he was paid a huge, like I think over $1 billion as severance compensation. It's crazy, like huge amounts are paid for these kind of situations. So now the question is that how do you structure this right? In which situations you don't want this compensation to be triggered? What are the caps? What are the ceilings that you put on severance compensation? Law has some ceilings, but you may contractually negotiate a lower ceiling. Sometimes if the person who on the other side is being very aggressive, you will say that, boss, this is the cap under law, I can't pay you more even if I wanted to, right? And then you will exclude certain scenarios that, if there's fraud or misconduct or harassment or abcd from your end for which your office is terminated, then no severance compensation is payable, because then we are not at fault. You're losing office out of your own wrongdoing, so this is on you. Okay, so that needs to be clearly negotiated and written in the contract. Okay, followed till here? Say yes if you followed. Say no if you don't, if you didn't. The next is ESOPs and phantom stocks. Okay, so there is ESOPs, there is sweat equity. Both work, they are similar, but there's a little difference. In sweat equity, what happens is that you get shares based on the amount of work you put in. In ESOPs, you will get options and you exercise those options based on a procedure, and then you get the shares. Okay, so the process in which it works, there's a slight difference in that. ESOPs are the more common way that is being used. Okay, uh, to incentivize employees. But there's another alternative way which is there called phantom stocks, where incentive is given, but it's not a direct cash incentive that, if our turnover doubles, you get this much money. No, it is a cash compensation based on the valuation of the company. So you will give somebody like 3 points, three, like you gave ESOPs, you can give them equivalent. It's like a fictitious stock. If the value of the company increases by a certain amount, instead of the shares, you will basically give them the cash value of that amount. Okay, a lot of big companies do it, and early stage companies also do it. Two reasons: early stage companies do it because they don't want to dilute the founder equity. Okay, so they don't want to give a lot of shares to employees, and they want to keep it intact, and they are happy to give the cash benefit. So for an employee, it's the same thing. You either get the cash or the shares, the value is the same. In fact, it's better if you get the cash, because then it's liquid cash in your hands. The other reason is that for listed companies which are listed on a stock exchange, they have a lot more compliance to do under Securities Exchange Board of India stock market regulations. If you do a phantom stock, your compliances under SEBI regulation and under Companies Act drastically go down. Okay, so it's a very smart way to give the same kind of incentives through a different route. Okay, and there's no mischief in it. It's just advantageous for those who want to do it. Okay, now learning how to structure this can be very, very beneficial for. So why am I saying that HR has a role here? Because again, performance management, incentives, appraisals, all of that, HR is expert, right? You're already an expert at this kind of work. This is very closely related to your existing work. Then there is IP related work. What is the IP related work? Let me give you some examples. So, whatever work the senior management does, any product plan, any financial plan, business plan, pitch deck, invention, new product, new idea, new logos, anything new that they work on, okay, as part of their job, gets assigned, the intellectual property in that gets assigned to the company. Okay, it gets assigned to the company. That will have to be written, and you'll have to track this. You'll need to have measures to track this, so that it should not be ki paper pe likha hai and actually you have no idea. So the person is basically running a startup of his own, also investing through his wife's account into another startup and sharing all the insights from this job over there. Okay, so you will have to prevent that kind of work from happening. So you'll do IP assignment, you'll also track the usage of the company systems.